I'm live. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. Let's see. Okay, live streaming. Live streaming. There, Sunday morning. That's me. Okay, that's good. Let's see if this works better. Let's see if this is better. Okay, 3 people. Hi, 3 people. Hello. Okay. Okay, so yes, it's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. Dev Coffee is here. How you doing? How are you, Dev Coffee? How was your day? How goes your weekend? I'm assuming you don't work on the weekend, or does the animal shelter, right? The work never ends, sadly. Okay, so I tried doing it from my phone, and it didn't work. Something was up with the connection, so I'm doing it from the laptop, from this camera, which means that the camera will be not as high quality, but neither is the show. So, it's all good. It balances itself out. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me? It's all good? I hope so. Good. Yes, there's audio, there's video. Let's keep going. Okay. We had 3 kittens at the shelter on Friday. They are healthy and so cute. Wow, how old? I mean, they must be really, really, really old. Really, really young if they wound up at the shelter. And where is their mama? So it's interesting. So now I'm going live from the webcam, right, on my laptop and not the phone. I wonder if that's going to affect. Where are you seeing me, Dev Coffee? Are you seeing me on some sort of? I mean, the angle is different. Is it a short? I'm curious how the webcam will affect the people seeing me on short or not, because most of the people who see they were just born, Mama is with them. Oh, that's nice. So wait, so if Mama is with them, why did they show up? What was wrong with them? I mean, is it just because it's so very cold where you're at? I'm curious. I'm also curious regarding how this will go down. Tell me, do you see me? Sort I'm trying to understand how someone might be. You know what? Maybe I'll check it out on my phone, and we'll see how this is seen on the phone. Because I'm curious. I'm curious regarding how it goes down. Hang on a second. Let's see. I'll go to my channel, and we will see if I can view myself and how it is viewed. Okay. I can see it just fine. It's a bit wider, but I can see. Okay. So there's right. Okay. So it's a regular. Okay. So the thing is, now I don't know. I wonder if I'll be able to find. I wonder if people will be able to find me through the shorts, because that's how most people find me. And I think that if it's on the webcam as opposed to the phone, I won't be on people's vertical shorts feed. And the vertical shorts feed is where, according to the analytics, I get like 99% of the streams, right? Of the engagement. So I have no idea how this is going to go down, but we'll start anyway and we'll see. We'll start anyway and we'll see. And it's Dev Coffee. Good to have you here. You don't have to stay, obviously, if you don't want. You're probably very tired. All right. So Danny O said Islam saved Jewish religion and Hebrew language from extinction during the 1200s. Now, this, to some extent, is true. There was a lot that was done while the Hebrews were in the different caliphates or whatever, right, under Muslim rule, even though they were dhimmis, right, second-class citizens or third-class citizens, and they were paying their tax, their skull tax. They did receive, in my understanding, they did receive a lot of freedom, right, to practice their faith, to practice their religion, and to keep it going, because we traditionally, according to Islam, are the people of the book. So, well, you know what? It's all right. So that it saved Jewish religion and Hebrew language from extinction, it's not exactly correct, because not all of the Hebrew speakers and not all of the Jewish people were under Muslim rule in the 1200s. But I think it is true that in those areas of the world, anyway, it was the rule of Islam that managed to help the Jews sort of well, keep their way of life going. And that much I think is correct. That much is correct. Now, I don't know a ton about the 1200s, but I do know that there were times when that was actually the case. And we know that different sages and different people and scholars from that time were integrated into that society, right, to one degree or another, and they didn't have that much, let's say, persecution. They didn't have that much problems. Everything YG says, do Jews worship the same God as Muslims? From what I've gathered, yes, but there are some people who disagree. The best evidence of this is that a Jew is allowed to pray, at least according to most scholars. You're allowed to pray in a mosque, but you're not allowed to pray in a church, because a church is considered idolatry, and a mosque is not considered a house of idolatry. So there is that difference over there. But some people still say that you shouldn't pray in either one. But I think, technically speaking, most halachic scholars say that you can pray in a mosque, which means that Jews would worship the same God as Muslims. But since I don't know much of Islam, I can't say what I think for sure. Rusty is here. Real Jack Matt is here. Hello, hello to you both. David says, Sir, did you perhaps work for General Aladdin? To which I will say, no. But that's, I mean, it's the Aladdin news or the Aladdin news. Ay, what a film. Nietzsche says, do you agree Israelites were given responsibility for spreading monotheism but couldn't do it? That's a good question. I don't agree that that was the case. I think that the Hebrews were put here to just carry on the Hebrew faith, carry on the Hebrew covenant, do their own thing, and other things would happen of their own accord, as I've mentioned many times before. But the mission that we got, some people say we are supposed to be this light unto the nations. But even if that's the case, and I'm not saying that it is, but even if that is the case, we're not supposed to be proselytizing necessarily or spreading the light with conquest and war. We are supposed to just be doing our thing. And by virtue of that, it will be like, right, throwing a stone into a pond where it ripples out of its own accord due to the laws of nature. And if we stick to our nature and if we keep the Torah and the commandments and the covenant, then things will ripple out of their own accord. And hence, whether we want it or not, the things that we do will affect those around us. And in that sense, it's not that we couldn't do it. I don't think that we had a responsibility for spreading monotheism. Basically, I think that that's not the right way of looking at the Hebrew faith. Though obviously some might disagree. I refuse business from Reform synagogues and church sanctuaries, says Real Jack Matt. Really? Interesting. So, what is it about Reform Judaism, Real Jack, that you consider to be I mean, such an affront or something so contradictory that you would refuse business from them? I'm curious if you could give me the lowdown on that. That's interesting. All right, let's continue. Eric says, do you cut your hair? Have you ever drank wine? So I don't cut my hair, but I have had wine. When I used to drink wine, I was basically a dry red or semi-dry red, depending on what I was eating at the time. But I did enjoy, let's say on Shabbat, between fish and meat, I enjoyed a shot or two of scotch, or of whiskey, whatever I had at the time in my home. So it was a lot of fun to eat meat, and it was a lot of fun to drink wine. However, I don't do either one of those things now. Okay, so you know what? Hold on a second. Da, 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 da. Okay, those questions were answered. Hang on a second. Now, there was a lot going on in the last couple of days. I mean, last night as well, right in the live stream. But let's see. Alex Vidakovich says regarding that when I said that I would follow, that perhaps I would be following Jesus as well if he was around nowadays, and I would be happy to call him rabbi, to call him master. He says, I would have followed him too. Not so long ago, perhaps 3 months ago or so, I cried to God, telling him how I suffer a lot for not being able to see Christ, talk to him in person, walk with him, touch him, and how blessed are people who lived during his first time among us, as they all had a chance to do that. But then, weirdly, without taking any mushrooms, which I never ever took, he says, while going back from the kitchen, my vision became altered, and I saw a silhouette approaching me in my room. I fell down onto my knees as I assumed that was Christ. I started crying profusely. He took me under my shoulders and lifted me up, wiped away my tears with his hands, and hugged me. And after a few seconds, everything came to how it was before. There I was, standing in my room, as if nothing had happened. And then I had the strange feeling of how what I experienced, he says, didn't happen at all and was supposed to happen in the future. I didn't see his face. It was all blurry. Not sure why I was not allowed to see, but here right now I'm tearing up again remembering it. It was so emotional. Very extreme experience, says Alex. That is indeed a real extreme experience. Now, some people say that if you want to find something, you'll find it, and if you're looking for something, it will appear to you. And still, I say, even if that's the case, right? Like if you want to see the number 42, you'll see it everywhere, something like that. And yet, even though we might be inviting these things into our being and into our reality, it doesn't make it any less real for us. So then the question is, now what? Do we take it as something personal? Do we take it as something that is meant to be for us? Or do we try and convince other people that this has happened and that that was the case? People who have different visions, apparitions, and different visitations, whether it's in dreams or whether it's in waking life, or whether it's in a trance, or whether I don't know what. I think the question is then, unlike prophets, right, who are given prophecy to tell the people and to convey the word of God, there are things that you can take for yourself, right? When I had my first, I think, real sort of prophetic dream, if you will, not that there was a prophecy involved, but prophetic for me, a guiding sort of dream, a dream where something was revealed to me. And I told it to a friend of mine, and he said, you know what? Sometimes the divine revelation just stops by to say hello, which means that you don't need to take everything as such an earth-shattering, oh my God, everybody needs to know about it, life-changing thing. For me, anytime that I had a dream or a vision of some sort, or any kind of experience like this, like extreme and emotional and spiritual, it was always something which had strengthened something which was already in existence. It didn't do something so fundamental to me that it completely turned my world around, right, from 0 to 100 and from bottom to top. It was simply something where it gave me a kind of boost, right? It kind of buttressed the positive things that I was experiencing at the time and simply gave them more of a push, more of a nudge, more of a more, well, like supplemented them, right, with something extraordinary. So that's a really interesting experience, and I'm happy that you had it, Alex. I really am. Mbal says, Shalom Aleichem, Hebrew Nazarite, Ve'alechem Shalom, Ve'aleikum Salam. I'm a Jew, obviously, he says, but the way they modify the Torah to fit their needs, in my opinion, is worse than going into a church. So you know what? I haven't had much experience with Reform Judaism and with Reform Jews. But as I said, was it last night to somebody who asked, I do see kind of why they do it. Because they, first of all, there's that idea of tikkun olam, which is a very global and very humanistic thing, a very, right, a very grand idea. And regardless of how they bring it into being in reality, whether they miss the mark or not, it's something that is a lofty and noble goal, right? Now they say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I don't doubt that Reform and conservative Jews, if I can lump them together, and maybe I can't, do have the best intentions. Orthodox people too, maybe, but we all fall short of the mark. We all fall short of the ideal that we want to attain, and we all are busy in pursuing it, but we make mistakes. The idea of the Reformed Jews, what you say, modify the Torah to fit their needs, are they really? Right? Are they really modifying the Torah? Or is it only the oral traditions that they are modifying? Is it only halacha that they not consider binding? I don't know. I'm actually asking because I don't know. I mean, I've spoken to Reform Jews, but I haven't spoken that much to Reform Jews that I sort of know the agenda and know the tenets and I know what is going on there. So I'm asking you. Now, it's worse than going into a church. So, do you consider Reform Jews to be worse than idolaters who actually do say that, let's say, a man is God? I'm curious. Your opinion on Jewish mysticism, says M. Boss. I mean, I don't know what you define as mysticism, but the esoteric parts, let's say, the mystical parts of the Torah, is one of the four facets of the Torah, known as the Pardes, Pshat, Remesh, Drash, Sod, which is the sort of plain, the alluring, the what would it be? The Drash, the ways in which you derive different teachings, and the esoteric teachings. The word for Drash escapes me right now. You know what? Hang on a second. I'll give you the proper. Um, I'll give you the proper translation. The four facets are pshat, which is literal or contextual, remez, which is alluded or metaphorical, drash, which is applied or interpretive, and sod, which is esoteric or secret. So those are the four different layers or facets of the Torah. So my opinion on Jewish mysticism is that it's definitely part of the Torah, and it's definitely a root part of the Torah. The thing is that when you approach the secret meanings, if you will, the hidden meanings, the esoteric meanings, you must keep your feet on the ground, right? When you have your head up in the clouds, you must keep your feet firmly on the ground. Otherwise, you will get lost in that esoteric meaning, right? You will get lost in the hiddenness, and that is not a good thing to do. And maybe it is for a time, for a very, maybe even predetermined. No, it won't be predetermined, but for a temporary space. You can inhabit that space, and but then you always need to take it back down to the practical, back down to reality, back down to the practical implementation of it in life. Now, there is that idea of Kabbalah Ma'asit, right? What's called the Kabbalah of Olam Ha'asiyah, the Kabbalah of this world, which has to do with manipulating forces of nature and invoking different not deities, different spiritual entities, demonic and angelic, right? Invoking different spiritual beings, let's say. That's why I thought of the word deities. Um, Spiritual beings, right, to do your bidding. And that's not always something that is desired. It's not always something that is wanted. And even if you could technically pull it off, does not necessarily mean that you merited it and that it is your place to have dominion at this time over those angels or demons or forces or laws of nature. So, my opinion is that you need to be very careful with Jewish mysticism, precisely and actually when it's applied. When it comes to the more intellectual side of it, you should always strive to implement it in life, but not so you can be called a Kabbalist and not so you could control forces of nature and angels or demons, but simply so you will know how better to serve your Creator and how better to mirror that image of God in which you are created and personify it and bring it and manifest it in fullness. That's what I would say. FDF is here, says, ew, you're going to hell, Jew. Thanks, FDF. Nice to see you again. Go worship Satan, loser. Well, many people say that's what I'm doing here right now. Tracky says, Jesus, his real name is Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi. Okay, can you tell me what that actually means? If you're saying that that is Aramaic, I don't know which Aramaic dialect that is. If you're saying it's Hebrew, I also don't know which Hebrew dialect that is. I know some Aramaic and I know Hebrew, and that means absolutely nothing in Hebrew or Aramaic. But I don't follow Jesus, so it doesn't really matter to me what you call him. However, can you be more specific? Tracy, is it Tracy? Tracy Ketron. And tell me, I read a Tracky before, but Tracy, can you tell me why does the name matter in this context? I'm curious. Go worship Satan. Yeah, indeed. I just might. Mike is here again. Hi, Mike. Do you believe, or maybe it was another Mike? No, no, you were here. You were here, Mike Tyson, in the past. Do you believe that Yeshua is the Jewish Messiah? I believe he could have been until he died, and then that's pretty much where it ends. Because we don't follow the dead, we follow the living. That's the way it goes. And I mean, there's a chance that he was anointed, but I think that even if he was anointed as the king, he wasn't accepted as the king by the people of Israel. And once again, even if he was, his reign was very, very short. It doesn't make him any less of a king at his time, but he died, and we do not follow dead kings. Real Jack Matt says they play electric music on Shabbat, drive on Shabbat, they convert easily. Well, look, electricity was a big debate in Orthodox halacha at the time. Should it be banned or not? And they decided to err on the side of caution because sometimes when you close a circuit, it can actually be like lighting a fire. And sometimes when you close a circuit, it doesn't have to be that way. And it depends on the nature of the electricity, right? So I'm thinking at the time they decided, like I said, to say, to like, we'll ban electricity. However, they did find workarounds around it, like the Shabbos Plata, like the elevator timer, like the Shabbos timers, right? Or Shabbos elevator. So, on the one hand, you say that it's not permitted to manually close an electric circuit and bring something online on Shabbos. On the other hand, if it happens of its own accord, that is permissible. Now, some people see that as loopholes. I don't think that way. So that's electric music on Shabbat. Driving on Shabbat is another issue. To drive, from what I've gathered, is actually to ignite the fuel, right? Isn't that what happens there with a fuel injection? And it's basically burning it up, and there's a spark. So in that sense, driving is actually technically lighting some sort of a fire, which is forbidden on Shabbos. As for converting easily, nobody said that you must be a candidate for conversion for many, many years, right? We know the famous convert who came to Hillel, and Hillel converted him pretty much right then and there. It doesn't take that much for an individual to be converted, or it shouldn't, at least initially. But now, because of, I don't know, the state of the world and the way that history has played out, Orthodox religion makes it really, really difficult for people to convert. And Orthodoxy discourages people from converting. Now, I understand that to some degree because this is something that you're all in. If you decide to join the Hebrew faith, you are all in, right? Until your death, you are under this covenant, you are under this way of life. Even if you convert to a different religion later on, you are still a Hebrew who has converted. Not easily taken, or should it be taken on a whim, right? So I understand those who caution against it. But what do you think, Real Jack? Why is it wrong to convert easily? Why do you see that as a detriment? Boss says, but isn't rejecting prophets sent by Yahweh a great sin, and maybe disbelief in context of Yeshua? Let's put it this way. What is it that Yeshua prophesied that we know was actually him, and what is it that was written later? When the sages came to canonize the different prophets and their prophecies, they left certain prophets out, most of them, and they left probably most of the prophecies out as well. And they canonized and codified, right, let's say, the things that are now in existence in the Hebrew Bible based not only on their merit back then, but on their influence and their, what would be the word, relevance now, even in these days, where even if we are discussing things that happened back then, they still have relevance here and now. That is why they kept them in the Hebrew Bible. That is why they decided to keep it in and leave other things out. Now, it's true, you are not allowed to reject a prophet if they are indeed a righteous prophet speaking the word of God to the people. That much is true. And there were different things that were, I mean, Jeremiah in the book of Lamentations, he speaks about how prophets were being killed, and that was a great sin. So, yes, it's a great sin for a prophet to reject his own prophecy and not prophesy. And it is a sin, missing the mark, right, for the people to not accept the prophet's words. So, we, by and large, don't accept the prophecy of Jesus, and we don't accept him as a prophet. I always say that he could have been a potential prophet. And I say potential because he may have been a great sage and very knowledgeable in lore and in doing, a very humble and righteous person. Was he a prophet? Not traditionally, which is why I don't know. The tradition says that he was a great, but that the spirit of prophecy, I don't know if it was on him or not. But either, where does it say that he was? I'm not rejecting it or denying. I'm asking literally where, right? That he's not a god and he's not a son of God and he's nothing of the sort. You can still say that he was a prophet, as far as I'm concerned. But then it goes into, okay, so what were the prophecies? Are they going against Torah? For a time can maybe bend the rules, but you can't break them or annul the Torah completely. The prophets were there to turn people back to Torah. FDF says, yes, he's going to rot in hell. He worships Satan and drinks baby blood. Well, rot in hell, perhaps. The Jews don't believe in hell, but okay. Worship Satan, again, perhaps, not consciously anyway. As for drinking baby blood, I don't think I've ever had baby blood. But if I do, what do you recommend it with? Like on the side of what? Though I usually eat and then drink afterwards, so what kind of meal, FDF, should I have before drinking the blood? Hello, cat. Is porn permissible in Jewish religion? No, I'm inclined to say no, because it is considered by many to be immodest, and the Jewish religion, by and large, is about modesty. So pornography, erotica is one thing, pornography is another, and it goes on a case-by-case basis, right? Not all nudity is not permissible. The thing is that pornography as such is probably very much against halacha because of its immodesty. If not, why most porn sites owned by Jewish groups? First of all, you know for a fact that most pornography sites are owned by Jewish groups. I don't know. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Second of all, I don't think that these Jewish groups keep halachic law if they are indeed the proprietors of these websites. I think that would kind of go against halacha. Now, obviously, we are creatures of contradiction, some of us of hypocrisy. We can hold two conflicting ideas at once. We can say that I believe in halacha and still own a pornography website. That simply makes me somebody who is conflicted inside and who manifests that conflict by trying to be a religious Jew on the one hand, but owning a pornography site on the other hand. Nobody is perfect. However, this specific thing, right, of pornography websites seems to be such an egregious thing, right, and so terrible in so many ways for so many people as individuals and as society. And I'm not judging people who use porn, produce porn, are in porn. A lot of them are in like deep mental trouble. We all to some degree, but I digress. Why? Look, if you're saying most porn sites are owned by Jewish groups, give me the proper context and sources that is for how that is and what that is, because I don't know that for a fact. I know a couple of them are, or I knew at the time, but I have no idea. I really have no idea. And why? Because people are contradictory creatures. We say one thing and we do the other. We try to follow halacha, but we fall short of the mark. But if that is indeed the case, maybe, and I'm not judging, but maybe they shouldn't be pornographers. Hmm. FDF says Jews didn't want to lose power and status, are mad at God. I don't know what you mean by that, FDF. Could you dumb it down for me? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. What do you think about Deuteronomy 18:15? Says M. Let's Google that right now. The JPS Tanakh version, 18:15. Deuteronomy 18:15. A prophet will the Lord raise up. Right, I literally did this last night. That is simply saying if there is a prophet, right, or a female, right, or a prophetess, right, a male or female prophet, these are the rules. They need to be from the tribes, right, and they need to be what is it? And they need to be like you, right, like Moses from the tribes. So that's pretty much it. FDF, he's a welfare Jew. He doesn't work. He's evil. First of all, I'm not on welfare. Second of all, I do work. I'm taking a break right now, but I've been at work since about 7, quarter to 8 in the morning. As for being evil, yes, I am. I'm definitely evil, for sure. Tracy says, hang on a sec. Tracy says, from the 12 tribes of Judah out of Zion was born a king, and I'm from out of the tribe of Benjamin. Well, I mean, Benjamin and Judah were part of the kingdom of Judah. It was Judah, Benjamin, and parts of Levi. That's who was that's who made up the kingdom of Judah. This practice will make us extinct, says Real Jack Matt. You mean the practice of what? Of inserting your own halacha? What is it? I mean, things that you claim that the Reform people, the Reform Jews are practicing. What sort of practice will make us extinct? I'm curious. Now, look, keeping strict halacha is what kept us alive and well and in survival in the exile. But we are now in a big problem because we are no longer fully in exile. And as I've mentioned, there's this tension between the old world and the new world, as it were, right? Between the fact that we have no smicha, we have no Sanhedrin, we have no proper sages, proper rabbis, and on the other hand, we see that there is a lot of redemption going on and prophecies being fulfilled and a lot of different miracles happening here on a daily basis. And so where is it that where do we go and what do we do? Careful people, says FDF, with false flags. Soon in America, they will try to get us to go to war with them. Beware of false news of enemies attacking us. Example, Muslims doing 9/11. Okay, so FDF, are you of the opinion that it was the Jews who did 9/11? Never trust these Jews that call us goyims on their private time. Again, goyim means nations. That's all that it means. I've never said goyim pejoratively, and I've lived in Israel, so maybe that's why. Because here I am the majority and not the minority. But who knows? Maybe if I lived in a land of other nations, I would call them goyim in a pejorative way. I doubt it because I'm just not that type of person inherently, but could be. FDF says baby flesh first, then blood. So according to you, the Torah says that we need to eat babies We cannibalize babies. That's your contention, FDF. You might want to check that out. I don't think so. Don't think so. Tracy says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God and became flesh and dwelt among us. Yes, that's the beginning of the Gospel of John, right? Is John? John. So I don't believe in that, right? We don't believe that the Word became flesh. We don't believe that God became flesh. We don't believe that there is a God incarnate. That's where we draw the line. Ratio is here. Hi, Ratio. Good to see you again. My question the other day about Christian countries helped you get Israel. Yes. Does that not mean Jesus managed to get you Israel? Isn't that what you expect the Messiah to do? Well, let's put it this way. The Messiah is supposed to be a living, breathing, walking, talking human king. So let's start with that. Second of all, no, because shortly after Jesus died, Rome kicked everybody out and destroyed the temple. So if Jesus was supposed to bring about the full redemption, then he failed, which makes him a failed Messiah. There have been many of those, right? A failed king, there have been many of those. A king who sort of, let's say, made a false promise, if he indeed made that such a promise. But no, I think that just because, let's put it this way, your claim, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that Christian nations who worship Jesus as God helped Israel get their footing and have aided them ever since. And so you're making a kind of extrapolation there, saying that it was Jesus who brought about Israel. But I could say, okay, but it's also the Germans. The Nazi Germany was a religious, Jesus worshiping country, were they not? And they brought about the destruction of a third of the Jewish nation, right? Over just about 6 million or more than 6 million, traditionally something like 6 million. That's what people say, probably more. So I mean, what about that? It means that on the one hand, you're saying that you need, isn't that Jesus getting you Israel? On the other hand, I'm saying, isn't that Jesus getting Israel almost completely annihilated in Europe? And they would have continued, right? If they were not stopped by the Allied forces, then they would have definitely continued and massacred the Jews en masse all over the world. So what does that mean? It means that they were stopped, right? A Jesus worshiping country was stopped by a Jesus worshiping country. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think there's much to that. Not really. Also, if you're saying that it happened because Jesus lived 2,000 years ago, I guess I can see where you're coming from, but I don't see it that way. No, I don't see it that way. Okay, let's continue. MBOS says, oh, I'm sorry, FDF says, nah, it's supposed to be peaceful. Okay? MBOS says, even though I don't agree with the theology of present-day Paulian Trinitarian Christians regarding Yeshua of Nazareth claiming to be Son of God or God Trinity, basically that's some blasphemy. But the early Jewish Christians which believed Jesus to be prophet from God, I align more with that. Yes, and I could technically align more with that as well. But I think the Jewish people did not want someone like Yeshua to be a prophet, even if he was, because he says they were waiting for someone like a king warrior type to liberate them and establish land of Israel. But there's a great chance Yeshua was sent by Yahweh as by my own researchers. Okay. Oh, conversion will cause us that. I see, I see. Conversion will cause us that. I understand what you mean. Let's put it this way. Because they were under the rule of Rome at the time, it could very well be that they were expecting this great warrior king poet like David, right, to come and abolish the Roman dominion there, right, and kick them all out, purify the temple, but that didn't happen. So they decided to sort of say, then he wasn't anything to begin with. I understand what you're saying. It could very well be that the Jewish people didn't want someone like that at the time, and they wanted someone else, someone more militant, if you will. That might be definitely the case. But if that was the case, that still would not explain why they wouldn't, that is, accept him later on. People in the diaspora. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you, Hebrew Nazarite. You're very reasonable and open. Thank you, says Ratio. Thanks, I appreciate that. Again, there are some things, hills I will die on, and places where I will not be blind and ignorant about. Yes. Kat says, yeah, porn is like most accessible drug like music, movies, etc. Sorry to say there is one sect from Jews who are Ashkenazi who promote a lot of propaganda. What do you think about that? I have no idea what sect you mean. There are many different sects in the Hebrew faith who promote different things. So I have no idea. What do I think about it? I think that if they do things in the name of God that go against the word of God, or let's say against, people have different interpretations of what the word of God is, right? And the Orthodox have their halacha, conservatives and reforms and reconstructionists have their halacha, let's say. So it really does depend on what sect you go by and what rabbi you follow, if at all. And Ashkenazi has nothing to do with it. You'll find Ashkenazi people. Ashkenaz is a geographical location in Eastern Europe, if I remember correctly. It's not. It's not a sect. So okay. Haha, let's see. It says, looking good. You were saying previously that my donation to you guys and we get back 80%? What? No, I said that's what I heard. What I heard is that we get 100% of budget, right, that we get from Congress. And I was told about 80% of it goes back to the states to buy armaments, munitions, weapons, and so on. And the other 20% is indeed, it stays here, or to some degree it stays here. And people accuse Israel of taking money, but it's the United States that is giving the money. Now, I don't know politics. I don't know the first thing about politics. I do know that if the United States is giving money to a foreign entity, and Israel is a foreign entity, an ally, but a foreign entity nonetheless, it means that they have their own interests at heart, and they want to keep some sort of something going on here in the Middle East. And I think that they think, maybe rightly so, that Israel is their best bet. That's why. So if you have a problem with the United States, and I have the greatest sympathy with you if you do, if you have a problem with the United States providing Israel with money, with aid, with anything, take it to your higher ups. Why come on my stream in Israeli and point the finger at me? Go point the finger at those who are actually giving out that money. Wouldn't that achieve something greater? FDF says, do you acknowledge the genocide of Germans after WW2, estimated 2 million using camps? I have no idea. As far as I know, there was a lot of de-radicalization going on in Germany and in Nazi-occupied areas, just like there was a de-radicalization of Japan at the time, right? So the genocide of Germans after World War II, estimated 2 million using camps? I have no idea. I have no idea. In war, people die. Are you sure that you're not simply saying that people died in a war and some of them were German? Because obviously, Germans who were complete innocent people in this war, who were not combatants, who were just civilians, and you could argue over their complicity, or the lack thereof. There's silence on the matter. I'm not arguing that, but let's say that they weren't in uniform actively fighting. They died. A lot of people died, whether it's from the bombings or whether it's from diseases, hygiene, I don't know what, but 2 million people using camps? I have no idea. People tell me, what do you think in the chat? 9 people are here. Has there been a genocide? Was there indeed a genocide of Germans? FDF says, have you ever done a DNA test? No, I haven't. I have not. Tracy says, you say from, oh, wait, what happened? Hang on. Reconnecting? Am I good? Suddenly it jumped. Okay, let's continue. Uh, what does Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi mean in Hebrew or Aramaic? I have no idea what that means. It doesn't mean anything to me. Now, maybe I'm wrong, right? Tell me what it means in Hebrew or Aramaic. As for the letter J, it comes from Jesus, from the Greek, as far as I know, right? Yeshua, Jesus, Jesus. That's how it came about. So, but Yeshua comes from the Yod Shin Ayin in Hebrew, meaning salvation. Yesha. That's how it comes from. Olvi says, how do you feel about Christians in Israel? I feel that it's cool if, we should live in peace with our cousins and with our brothers, the Edomites, and with our cousins, the Ishmaelites. I've seen videos that they get spat on by locals. What's your take? That it's an abhorrent thing. I've mentioned this many times. I don't think it's a practice that I definitely don't condone it. In fact, I do condemn it and the people who do it. I think that if you're going to spit, at least wait until they are way behind you and then sort of go, and pretend to spit, or if you want, actually spit. But to spit on people is a horrible thing, a really horrible thing, truly. And that's not a good thing at all. That's not cool. That's really not cool. Okay. Hey, Sneezer is here. Shalom, everyone. They treat Christians like dogs in Israel, says FDF. Man, do you even live here? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? Do you even know what you're saying? I've lived here almost all my life. Christians are not treated like dogs. Seriously. But okay, whatever you say, FDF. Thoughts of Daniela Weiss. I have no idea who that is, the mad Norwegian. So I don't know. I don't know who that is. If you tell me who it is, go for it. Because you agree with it, says FDF. I don't understand what that's. Could you reference it? I have no idea. Looking Good says we give weapons to you to unalive children for free. You guys don't buy anything. Really? Can you give me a source on that? You're saying that Israel gets weapons for free? What the hell are you talking about? Of course they buy them. Of course they purchase them back from the United States using the budget the United States gives them. Maybe certain weapons or prototypes, or I don't know what, are given free. I don't know. I'm not on these committees. I'll grant that. So I don't know technically what's going on behind the scenes, and I might be very wrong. But it seems to me that from what I've heard, and I might be wrong about that too, or the people I've heard it from might be wrong, Israel gets a certain amount. A large percentage of it goes right back into the US economy. As for unaliving children, again, point the finger of blame at Hamas. These are the people putting children in the line of fire deliberately to maximize civilian casualties and use it to make use of the propaganda later on for people who support terrorism and are pro Hamas and are anti Israel. And they do it purposefully, and they put their civilians in the line of fire, and they put their weapons and all of their armaments and right, there's the storage of weapons and things in their depots. They put it in schools and in mosques and in hospitals and private homes, specifically to get people killed so they can later cry, oh, those Zionist pigs. So if you have a problem with unaliving children, and I do as well, take it up with Hamas. Truly. Fadrius says, last time I was here, you said Jews and Palestinians are kind of like warring brothers. Can you explain on that idea? Well, not brothers, but cousins, because Palestinians, they say, are of, at least the Muslim ones, right, are from Ishmael, the house of Ishmael, which is our cousin. Jacob, Ishmael, cousins. And the Christians are Edomites, which are brothers. So it's sibling rivalry, right? It's rivalry within the family. Now, Jews and Palestinians, at the time of the British Mandate of Palestine, Jews were also considered Palestinians. They were Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Arabs, because the place was called the British Mandate of Palestine, because the Romans named it Palestine in order to get us to forget about the kingdom of Judah and Judea and Jerusalem, right? They renamed it Ilia Capitolina, if I'm not mistaken. Was that them? Maybe I'm mixing it up with someone else. But the idea is that we are on different sides of the same coin, let's say, and we are family. And you hurt the ones you love. You know what I'm saying? It's like the way that you treat family. Sometimes, even if you're, I mean, I know this about myself. Sometimes I can seem very chill, and I do want to treat everybody with respect, and I don't mean to get angry, and I don't want to be a terrible human being, and I try to be kind. But sometimes, within my own close circle and my own family, I can be sometimes very rigid, sometimes not as kind, because you hurt the ones you love, right? And even if you are one thing outside of your home, when you're in your home, you're another thing. Now, we all have personas that we take and wear and use different masks in different situations. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the context of this, yes, like warring brothers. Indeed, we are like warring brothers. And it's becoming like this religious pissing contest, and we should live in peace. But we need to de-radicalize both sides. Both brothers need to de-radicalize. That's what we need to do. Looking Good says APAC needs to go. So you know what? I'm thinking, because I don't live in the States, I don't truly know how much of an impact APAC has on policy making. You know, are they lobbying for different things? I know that they contribute to different causes, some of them likely political, and this idea of politics and of money and control and power and consolidating power goes hand in hand. And that's also why I don't vote, because I think it's a dirty business. And I think that many times the politicians are puppets controlled by people who were not voted in by public majority, controlled by people who are not necessarily doing what's best for the state or the country, but who are doing what's best for their wallet, and their business. So if APAC is indeed like that, maybe it doesn't need to go. I don't know. I don't live in the United States. But I've been told that APAC has its hand in a lot of pies, and that's why people want them to go. Fadria says many Germans were killed after the war as punishment from what I understand. Right. Okay. Killed in a trial by jury or, whatever judicial system, right? Or killed without any without any proceeding according to law. Are you talking about simply people lynching Germans in the streets, or are you talking about Germans who faced criminal charges and were put to death? There's a big difference there. If you say that there were criminal charges and they were brought up and they were proven beyond all doubt to be guilty and they were executed, that's one thing. If you're saying that Germans, just by virtue of being German, were lynched in the streets, that's a different story and I condemn that. You know what I'm saying? It's a big difference. So which one do you mean? It makes a big difference to me. Looking Good said, because you used a horrific number like 80% invested back into United States, it's a lie. Okay, you know what? How much do you think is invested back? Also, it's been my understanding that a lot of the budget is used for security needs here in Israel. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that raises the question, if not 80%, how much is used? Because the bulk of what we are purchasing, in my understanding, is directly from the United States. So maybe it's not 80%, but how much do you think it is actually, practically? Let me know. Because I'm curious. All right, let's see. See, right now, because there's not a lot of people, I'm going one by one in the chat like I used to, a couple of months ago. You should be thanking us, you ungrateful, greedy people. I do. I thank you. I thank the United States for giving Israel aid. I think Israel should start, I mean, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, to stand on its own and not require any aid. But fundamentally, Israel is very, very small, right? So maybe if somebody is willing to give us aid and allyship, like has been done throughout history many times with different nations, maybe we should go for it. Maybe we should take it. Just like at the time of the Hashmonite dynasty, there was a pact with Rome before they became the enemy. They teach the kids to attack Christians or don't do anything to stop them, FDF says. That is a lie. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, let me amend. I was never taught to hate Christians, nor was I ever told not to do anything to stop them. So when it comes to me personally, that's not how I was raised. But I wasn't raised ultra Orthodox or Haredi or Hasidic. Maybe they are raised that way. Could very well be. Could be. And that, once again, is something that I don't condone and I condemn, because people are people. And it doesn't matter if they are Hebrews or Christians or Muslims. It really doesn't matter, right? What did His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie Rastafari say? He said, "Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, everywhere is war." And I wish and I hope and I pray that we will be able to reach that place where the color of a man's skin or their religion or whatever is of no more significance than the color of their eyes. And people will be judged on the merit of what they do and not what God they believe in or what religion they follow or what skin color and what's the content of melanin in their skin. I think that's really awful. As for thanking us, who said that I don't thank you? That's not cool. I never said that I don't thank. DNA tests are illegal in your stolen land. First of all, it can't be stolen if you are actually the ancestral home, right? It's the ancestral home of the land of Israel. Belongs. The people of Israel, it belongs to the Creator. The people of Israel have lived in the country known as the State of Israel before it became a state, right? The land of Israel for a long time, Ryo lens. As for DNA tests being illegal, that is a damnable lie. There is a lot of regulation around it, from what I've gathered. I haven't done a DNA test. I have no idea, but it really doesn't matter. A Hebrew man or woman is a Hebrew man or woman no matter where they come from. If they are converts or if they joined from being birthed into the faith, they are 100% Jewish. So it really doesn't matter what the DNA says. So you're wrong on both of those counts. It's not stolen land. Some parts might be, and that I'm against, right? Different like fringe settlements that are illegally erected, that I think should not be the case. If you steal land, that should not be made into a legal thing. But a lot of the land was purchased legally. A lot of the land was legally taken over in a war that we did not start, and that by any measure is legal, even if you want to cry and bitch and moan about it. Sorry, guy. Jack says, "Do you reckon one day we all collectively stop being attached to the ego, remembering our true nature slash state, with the illusionary concepts of forms collapse?" Well, I don't know about the illusionary concept of form. That's beyond my pay grade. That's like above my pay grade. But as for stop being attached to the ego, I think that there will come a time when we will be able to elevate the ego to such a degree that it will be serving the good 100%, right? And then, I mean, look, if you equate, let's say, the ego with death coming into the world in the account of creation in Genesis, then death will be taken out of the world when we partake of the fruit of the tree of life. And ego, in the very same way, will be taken out. And then all of those concepts of form will indeed collapse, and we will be able to exist on a different plane together, right? What I call humanity phase two, after we partake of the fruit of the tree of life. So that's how I see that. So collectively to stop being attached, yes, I think it will be the case at some point. I can't tell you when, and I don't know how it will go down. Thoughts on the recent Epstein details, says Sneezer. I have no idea. I didn't look into the previous details, let alone the recent details. All I know is that there was a dude named Jeffrey Epstein, who people say is a bad guy, and that there was a huge investigation, and now the files have come to light. Some of them still censored and redacted, but a lot of it has come to light, and fingers are being pointed at certain people, many of them with power and money and influence, celebrities and people in the know. I don't know. I really, really don't know. You stole nukes, says FDF. We stole nukes, okay? They steal everything, says Ryo. Okay, really, we stole everything. So according to you, this is all stolen, and we are just aggressors, occupiers, colonialists. All of that is such crap. You can't be a colonizer in your own land. Having a colony means having a mother state. So it's not a colony because this is actually the mother state. Olive says, "Would I be safe as a Christian to visit Nazareth and Golgotha?" Yes, definitely, you would. There are many Christians still in Nazareth to this day, if I'm not mistaken. FDF says, "As long as you don't say Jesus, you won't be attacked." Man, FDF, I really don't know which ass you're pulling these things out of, but it's really not the case. Now, it is also not the case that I've spoken to each and every Christian who has ever lived in the state of Israel, obviously. But I know for a fact, because I pass by Christians every day, they are not mistreated like dogs. It could be that in certain ultra Orthodox neighborhoods, they are spat on, unfortunately, or next to, but treated like dogs. What are you basing that on? I would love to, right? I've been living in Jerusalem almost all my life, and not once did I see a Christian be mistreated simply because he or she are a Christian. Not once. So I think that I'm not the outlier in the way that I perceive reality, right? According to that, I don't think that I'm the outlier. I think that I'm the rule and not the exception. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. I'm willing to accept that. So it could be that in certain situations you are right, but by and large, Christians are not treated like dogs, unless you mean that people like them. Now, I'll tell you who people don't like: the missionaries and those who proselytize. Those people maybe not like because we don't do that, so we don't like people who do that to some degree, right? Brent says, "You devils have been doing this to my people since your people invaded." Once again, you can't invade a country where you have a presence already. That's not an invasion, that is going back home, right? Also, invade, the Arab nations around us invaded. We were simply going home. Of course, people want to ignore that and only see their narrative and only think that they are the virtue, right? And they have the right, they are a paragon of justice and morality. But actually, if you look historically, there was always a Jewish presence in the Holy Land, and a Christian and a Muslim one as well. Nobody's negating that. But out of all the people who lived here, right, it was the armies of the Arabs around us and the Muslims around us who attacked repeatedly, repeatedly, relentlessly, and who continue to attack to this very day. So really, what only now instead of armies, it's terrorist groups. Okay, because the armies have failed repeatedly. If we did not win the wars, if we would have lost the wars, we would have been, had our throat cuts, and we'd be driven into the sea, and the state of Israel would cease to exist, and the Hebrew people would cease to exist in this part of the world because we would all be killed. So if it's self-defense, yes, we defend ourselves in the face of a war of extermination, of annihilation. Definitely. So would every sovereign nation or state. So would every individual with an instinct of self-preservation and survival. So don't give me that crap. Invaded. Palestine was a big Freemason center, still is, says Antique Harlem. Really, Freemasonry, like Muslim Freemasonry? This is the first I've heard of that. Ratio says, is Elohim first and Yahweh later different identities? They are different names. The names correspond to different ways in which Adonai is revealed in the world. Right? The name Elohim is plural, and Yod He Vav He is more singular. Although even there's the duality of the He. It's Yod He Vav He, but the He's differ. There's the first He, which is the higher feminine. There's the lower He, which is the lower feminine. There's the Yod, which is the higher masculine, and the Vav, which is the lower masculine. So we see the four different facets, higher and lower masculine, feminine, embodied in the Yod He Vav He. To bring it together means to bring together and unify the different divine masculine feminine presence in the world. So Elohim is the name used, is a plural name. It's not Eloha, which is singular. It's Elohim, which is plural. So it's not a question of different identities. It's different ways in which God is revealed in the world. Could the Lord be limited or false? And Jesus confronts this at cross and crucifies Yahweh with him. Well, I have no idea what Jesus did or didn't do. I wasn't there at the time. I do know that whenever we speak of the Lord, I don't speak of God. I speak of revelations of God because I don't know the true nature of God. So whenever, you hear people say God desires this, God wants this, desire and want are things that we have, human beings. So we sort of anthropomorphize God, and we project our wants and needs to God, right? And the Torah was written in such a way in the tongues of man, right? With the eyes of God, the nose of God, the hand of God, the finger of God. But God has none of these things, nor does he have any of these attributes, nor is it truly the name, right? Elohim or Yod He Vav He, these are not truly a name that, right, it bespeaks a certain divine revelation. That's what I'm saying. As for what happened on the cross, I don't know. I don't follow Jesus, and I'm not a Christian. Kat says, can we kill you if Hamas hide in your house and using you as a human shield? I wouldn't be surprised if I did turn up dead. If Hamas was in my house using me as a human shield, I would not be surprised if I turned out dead. Yes, it wouldn't surprise me. Kat says, do you get what I'm saying? I think, maybe because I answered you now, so I'm not sure. All right, you know what? Now that I have a few more people in the chat, I'm going to go and skip to the bottom. So people who had different things to say, write them again if you want, but I'm going to skip to the bottom. I'm off to bed. Dev Coffee says, good for you. Go off to bed. Enjoy your night. Jack says, wouldn't you say Kabbalah leads to non-duality? No, at no point does it lead to non-duality. If you study it wrong under an improper master, it definitely can. And that's the wrong way to go about it. That's why I always say, if you're going to study Kabbalah, first you need a kind of history, and you need to have good attributes, right? Ideally, to go by, and Torah and commandments. But a proper master, because a proper master will be able to guide you in navigating those waters that can lead you to non-duality. That's true. At the point of pure entanglement in God, no, because God is none of these things, right? What does Eliyahu say in the beginning of the Zohar? He says, right? It's like you have knowledge, but not from knowledge. You have wisdom, but not from wisdom. Nothing that we can attribute to you is actually attributed to you by definition. It's simply ways in which we can connect to the divine revelation, right? He doesn't have any of these garments. He doesn't have any of these attributes. He doesn't have any of these real revelations. They are just revelations that we perceive from our side, right? We perceive with our physical and spiritual eyes, let's say. So the thing is that God has none of these things, and God is none of these things. It is simply how we perceive the divine revelation. So Torah, Kabbalah, is written by people for people, because we are the ones who are here trying to keep the Torah and the commandments. We are the ones trying to figure out how to bring into the fold and into reality, into the foreground, the image of God in which each and every one of us was created. And so we need to have some ways of identifying those divine attributes within us to know how to behave and what to do. And what let's leave it at that. So Kabbalah does not lead to non-duality. If you do it wrong, if you study it wrong or improperly with a non-kosher master, it can definitely lead to duality because you can make the mistake of thinking that there are two authorities or more, and you can make the mistake of thinking that the 10 sfirot actually are part of God when they are only emanations, right? We have 10 sfirot that are vessels, we have 10 sfirot that are light, but neither one of these things, not the vessel nor the light, or the essence as it's known, is indeed God. It's simply ways in which we use these material sort of terms, we use allegories and metaphors and things like the sfirot in order to convey spiritual ideas to the human flesh and blood being. But it can definitely lead that way if you do it wrong. That's true. Expose the narcs as they lie, and you can feel it. It's like they were different species. You just get that feeling when they defend their illegal activities. Well, you know what? You could be referring to Israel or Hamas by saying that. So let's continue. You have good English, but outdated accent, says Antique. Did you learn English from the 1960s? No, but I learned English from my parents, who were children of the 60s. It's the old radio accent voice. It's good. Thanks, I appreciate it. I actually did consider studying voice acting, but I never actually did it. The 11th Sfirot found in Da'at. No, there is no 11th Sfirah. It's 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. 10 and not 11. Alvis says, do you think Sarah Netanyahu is a good person? I don't know her, so I have no idea. I really don't. Ratio says, thank you, Hebrew Nazarite, and thank you. I have to go. I always enjoy listening to you, and we'll pop by again soon. That's nice. Have a wonderful day. Very, very, very cool. That is confusingly a lot of power, says Maker. What power are you talking about? I'm curious. FDF says Israel has won every war, several with no help. Hey, Tenebris is here. You know what? I don't know. I think that we received help, direct or indirect, with every single war. I think we did receive aid in some way or another with every single war. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Tenebris, what are you basing that on? I'm curious. Um, he also doesn't study the tree, said Sneezer. Who doesn't study the tree? Tenebris says US gives 3.8 billion annually. Israel gives US 20.3 billion annually. Oh, well, there you go. Have you ever lived outside of Israel? Yes, Phaedrius. I lived in the Netherlands for 3 years. Maker says, where is Abel? Well, presumably he's in the ground. He's dead, isn't he? Sunuza says the very reason he doesn't believe or admit to an 11th Sphira is exactly why he doesn't realize non-duality. Okay, cool. So if you think there are 11 Sphirot, you have most of the Kabbalistic teachings, like I think 90 something percent, I would say, by other people who know more, a lot more than I do, that go against that. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't go against the fold. It doesn't mean you can't go and rebel against mainstream Kabbalistic thinking. But it also, I think, means that you would have to bring very good cause on why it's 11 and not 10, and why the bulk of people do think that it is 10. That's what I would say. Is it lunchtime in your place? Yes, it's 12 p.m. It's noon. Says Irony World. Yes, it's lunchtime. I guess I'll have lunch afterwards. I took a break from work, and I'm doing this now. And later, when I'm done with this, I'll go down and have some like a sandwich or something. I don't know. Or maybe, I'll have leftovers from Shabbos. We have tortillas. I'll have a tortilla with some vegan chili. Can you explain Metzitza Bapeh? Hey, Abvil, I think that we already went through this. This happens every single time, and I already explained it. So, no, I explain it basically every single live stream. You don't study the tree, HN? You've said it many times. What do you mean? I've said that I'm not a Kabbalist, I'm a student of the tree of life. So, what do you mean by I don't study the tree? I definitely do study the tree, but I don't consider it to be God. I consider it to be emanations of God, revelations of God, the garments in which the divine clothes him, her, itself. I like your vibes, bro, says Olive. Keep up the good work. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Jack says, now we're getting deep. There you go. To get deep is good. Tenebris says U.S. didn't ally with Israel until after 1967. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I wasn't sure about that. I didn't. No, what are you talking about? That's not true. There were U.S. fighter pilots, I think, who came here to teach the pilots in 1948 how to pilot the planes, right? Wasn't there an Air Force, a small one, but wasn't there an Air Force in the War of Independence of 1948? What didn't Israel's army have an Air Force from the beginning? Weren't they taught by people from the outside? So how can you say that the U.S. did not ally? No, maybe they allied. It could be that they allied themselves like officially later, but unofficially earlier. Could that be the case? Because if you're saying, Tenebris, that the U.S. did not ally with Israel until after 1967, there were plenty of wars and skirmishes before 67 that Israel won, and I think they did it with some aid. So maybe it was unofficially behind the scenes the U.S., or maybe it was other countries giving aid. I don't know. That's an interesting idea. Kabbalah is the study of the tree. Yes, it is. It's the study of the tree of life. That's what it is. That's why I don't call myself a Kabbalist, but I do call myself a student of the tree of life. So if you study the tree, said Sunizer, you practice Kabbalah, though your Kabbalah may not be the same version as others. Well, I mean, practice. What does it mean to practice? It definitely informs my daily being and my day-to-day life. It informs the way that I think about the divine or lack of thought about the divine, for sure. And Hasidic teachings, right? Teachings is not an allied treaty. Okay, I see what you mean, Tenebris. I see what you mean. So, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean, Sneezer. What do you mean? What do you think it is that I do when I sit down, like yesterday, right? I study the Pardes Limonim, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. That's his first magnum opus, right, out of two on the Kabbalah. And I study that on Shabbos, right, and other holy days. I studied it yesterday. And yesterday I was learning certain things from it. And over time, it becomes part of what I do. Over time, it becomes part of how I think about the divine revelation. So, what do you mean when you say that I study it and that I practice it? What do you mean when you say it? I don't know what you mean. And yes, the Kabbalah that I study is not the same version as others because many people study Abulafia Kabbalah or they study Lurianic Kabbalah or they study Ashlag Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah that I learn is the Kabbalah of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, the Ramak. I mean, there's a big difference there, but some say that it's evolution of Kabbalah and that I choose to stay behind. And some say that no, 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 you should evolve further and go further. But I like where I am right now. Did you read the three books of Enoch? So I read the first one for sure, and I may have read the second one way back. The third one, I don't think I did, Maker. No. Apfel says, I'm sorry, my first time in your live, and I'm not here to say any inflammatory statement. I just want to know. Oh, well, okay. Then in that case, I'm mixing you up with someone else. Forgive me. So basically, it's sucking the blood from the wound after circumcision. And it used to be that you put your mouth on the wound, on the penis, but now that's not done. Some people still do that. I'm against that because there's a risk of infection and other things. And Moels, right, who performed circumcision, the ones that performed it on my kids, they used a sterile single-use apparatus and they sucked out the blood using it. That is mitzitza b'peh. Now, the first two facets of the circumcision, which are cutting off the foreskin and spreading the skin, those two are non-negotiable. Some say that mitzitza is negotiable and that it should be abolished, but halacha, orthodox halacha, still states that mitzitza b'peh, sucking out the blood, is still one of the three facets of the circumcision. But the two more important ones are indeed the circumcision itself, cutting off the foreskin and spreading the skin. So, yes. Okay, let's continue. I have a relatively unique one too, said Sneezer. Okay. FDF says, you cut your baby's wee-wee. Yes, I do. I cut the foreskin off. It's the cover of that which brings life into the world, and we cut off the cover and we reveal the organ. So you got to get head from a rabbi to get circumcised? No, you don't, and it's not exactly giving head. Tenebris says to look good. No, Israel survived every super empire long before U.S., Britain, or France existed. No, see, Sneezer, you say you're a Kabbalist. I'm not a Kabbalist. I am a student of the Tree of Life. That's how I choose to define it. You can say that I'm a Kabbalist. I'm definitely not a Kabbalist. But hey, if that's what you want to say, that's cool. Apfil says, if I'm someone non-Jewish, where is a good place to learn about the culture that's beyond the Bible? I was born a Christian and want to know the truth to Jewish tradition. And you know what they say, two Jews, three opinions. It's like depending on who you go to, you'll get different ideas on what the Jewish culture is. If you go to an Orthodox, that's neighborhood, or a conservative or reform synagogue, or each one will give you a different idea. Maybe some more local, maybe some more global. I have no idea what you should do about finding out the culture or the tradition. I don't know. Well said, Sneezer. If you're spreading the foreskin, look, orthodoxy will always be my home, even if I don't practice strict halacha. So I would say consult with your local Orthodox rabbi on what the Jewish tradition is and what the truth is. Now, take what they say with a grain of salt. The Orthodox tradition is not 100% proof, right? Is not 100% error proof, is what I wanted to say. So take it with a grain of salt and do your own research. If you're spreading the foreskin and sucking the blood with your mouth, it's pretty darn close to head, at least when you're an adult. Yes, I agree. Antiqua says, what do you think of the Gnostic Christian version of reality that we're in the demiurge world and not the true reality? That Jesus Christ came to save us and help us escape the Old Testament jealous G? I have no idea because I don't know enough about Gnostic ideas, right? But those planes of existence, right? Not being in the true reality. And it's like a lot of times it's like what Morpheus says, right? It's the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. In other words, we're all plugged into some sort of matrix. Now, some things which, for instance, the Kabbalah with its study of the 10 Sfirot, one of the things that aims to do is to free your mind, just like Morpheus tried to free Neo's mind, right? And we basically use the divine revelation in this world in order for it to show us our own spiritual and physical anatomy and how we are created in the image of God, what it is we are supposed to be doing here. The Torah and the commandments and the covenant that we, the Hebrew people, stick to is there to elevate the physical, elevate the material, to elevate this world, right? And everything that you do that is for the good, that is for the benefit, that is for righteousness and justice, you do something that elevates you. And the entire world is elevated alongside with you. And so, if there's enough, let's say, of a critical mass of good people doing good things and of righteous people doing righteous things, of justice permeating everything, we will of it's like it will happen of its own accord, where that critical mass will cause a shift in how we perceive reality, because we will all be manifesting that image of God that much more clearly, that much more fully, and in doing that, we will be able to escape this reality and right if it's not the true reality, and we will force the true reality into being by the way that we act in this untrue reality. Do you see what I'm saying? So if that's what they are saying, it's like, okay, I'm kind of on board with that conceptually, but I don't know practically how it's done. Here you got to pay for that kind of service. Well, you pay for that service here as well. There are regular moils and there are expert moils. Kabbalist is the latest anti-Semite talking point. Oh, I think it's been that way for a very long time, actually. But okay. Retard atheist Americans help Israel, says FDF. Really, you think that retard atheist Americans have no interest in keeping a kind of U.S. influence in the Middle East, regardless of the religion which they may not follow as atheists? Do you think that they are retard Americans? Atheists can go here or there, but do you think they are retarded Americans for wanting to be allied with a power in the U.S. that shares some of it, in the Middle East that shares some of the U.S.'s values? How on earth is that retarded? I have no idea. Probably get herpes too. Yes, that's why people don't put their mouth on the penis anymore, and they use a single-use sterile apparatus. That's exactly it. Apfel says the talk of ego from you sounds like the way yoga describes ego, and yoga predates Judaism. Well, look, maybe it predates the modern day Judaism, and maybe some of the texts predate the Torah, but the Hebrew way, as such, goes back to Eden. So it could be that it's me, a Hebrew, a Jew, talking about these things, and you equate it with Judaism or the Hebrew faith. But what I'm talking about a lot more is the Edenic mindset, right? I'm talking about Eden. And in Eden, that predates all faiths and all religions and all sacred texts. It's like the origin of where things come from. You see what I'm saying? At least according to Genesis, if we take the account of creation as a kind of origin story, even if the universe existed for billions of years before that, and I'm not disputing that, it was a kind of origin story. So that's why it might be something that you see. That might be something why you see that it sounds like it, even though it's not it, because we both come from a shared root. Okay, let's continue. How long ago was Eden, HN? So the physical way of measuring it is not probably exactly the way it was, but traditionally it's 5,786. Yes, 5,786 years ago. However, we know that in Eden we are dealing with spiritual matters. And so it's not necessarily that that was the case, that 5,786 years ago suddenly there was creation, suddenly there was this big bang, right? Although some people do say that the universe is that age, but it was created ancient. It was created old. It was created 5,786 years ago, they say, with all of the galaxies already formed, the young and the old, and all of the fossils in the earth, as if it was born ancient. And it's an interesting way to look at it. And there is some sort of there's something to that that I agree with, or that I can see why it would be true. But yoga describes a different origin than Eden. Shiva wasn't in Eden. No, but Shiva, in my understanding, is a deity. Isn't that a Hindu deity? And so we are talking about the idea of a divine. We are talking about the idea of this supernal being, if you will. So Neither says Vedas are from around a similar time as the Torah and describe much better. Okay, cool. Antiqua says, do Jews internally keep the tribe system like this group of Jews is the Levites and this one is the Judahites, or are you all just Jews without the tribe classification? Well, let's put it this way. Without temple worship, it means that the priests and the Levites and the Israelites are it's most of it is symbolic. However, there are times when it actually comes into play. For instance, the priestly blessing that is right after the Nazarite vow in the book of Numbers. The priests still do carry out the priestly blessing. The ones who wash their hands before they go up to the stage to bless the people are the Levites. I, as a Levite, have washed the hands of priests many, many, many times. And so, or in the redeeming of the firstborn, right? If you have a baby boy, a firstborn baby boy, and you're not from the tribe of Levi, meaning you're not a Levite or a priest, it means that you need to perform the ritual, or traditionally you perform the ritual of the redeeming of the firstborn, in which a priest actually plays an active part. Or when it comes to defilement of death, right? Priests, like certain Nazarites, can be defiled by death, and that's something that is not okay. So priests avoid going to cemeteries, and priests avoid going to funerals. And some priests even go so far as to wrap themselves up in garbage bags in a few layers when they fly over different places. You may see this picture of a dude in a plane covered in garbage bags, and it's to prevent physical, material, ritual uncleanliness. But basically, we're all Jews because we are the remnants of the kingdom of Judah, and the kingdom of Judah had Benjamin, Judah, and parts of Levi in it. So it's yes and no. Let's see. Railjack Matt Net says, nope, Earth is 5,786 years old. Okay, see, that's what I'm saying. You can definitely believe that the Earth is 5,786 years old. You can definitely believe that even though the scientific evidence says to the contrary. There was a time when the greatest scientific minds, if you will, or the greatest minds, thought the Earth was flat. So it's like you can't truly know. And I still believe both at the same time. The ego is empty, making our entire self empty. What is empty doesn't need credit. We are beyond the material constructs of man, says Jack. Beyond the material constructs of man. That is very interesting. What are you basing that on, Jack? I'm curious. What is empty doesn't need credit. That sounds like the Tao Te Ching speaking. Abville says you should do more studying on the Vedas. Yes, I probably should. The parts that I've read of the Vedas, I've thoroughly enjoyed. That much is true. Tenebris says to real Jack, nope, we have trees on Earth older than 8,000 years old. Yeah, see, something like that. FDF says New Age meaning new thoughts that are not canon. Not sure what you mean. Which ones? Which ones? I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know which ones you mean, these new thoughts, but okay. Sneezer says that's an old wives' tale. Most scientists know the shadow measurements from the well with trig. From what do you mean? Trigonometry? What shadow measurements? I'm not sure what you mean. And few other methods, not to mention, however, the Egyptians, pyramid builders mapped it all. Yes, you know what? There was great wisdom. There was great wisdom in previous societies and civilizations and cultures, and some of them maybe stuck around in the form of these constructs or these constructions, right? These pyramids. It's very interesting. To say that they mapped it all, where are these maps, Sneezer, if you say that they mapped it all? I'm curious. Okay, now wait, let's go back. If nothing's going on here, let's see. Jack says everything at once, all forms at once, and yet none. The human ego cannot come up with any idea that can explain fully this truth. So we must see past the ego. We must see past the ego. Yes, I suppose that's correct. But again, it's more of sort of elevating the ego alongside yourself. Irony said, "What did you think of Jeffrey Epstein? I have no idea. I don't know anything about these Epstein files, so I really don't know what to think. From what I've heard, he was not a good dude, but I have no idea. I really don't." So Neither says, "Flat Earth is a Levitical claim. By mapping it all, I mean the ratios of base to height, a fraction of Earth to the moon slash sun." But okay, I'm still not getting what you're saying here. Sneezer says, no, sorry, Sneezer said that. Jack says the ego tries to come up with explanations of the world it's in. In ignorance, man lies in order to preserve their sense of self. Once you let go of the very thing you're defending, you will see. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. That's why I'm a fan of ego death, right? I'm a very much a fan of ego death. That's true. It's good to experience that death of self, to experience the transformation, to experience let's say, the internal metamorphosis, to go beyond yourself, right? To grow beyond what you know. This is also part of what Torah and commandments facilitate. Do you believe we went to the moon, says FDF? I mean, I have no real reason not to believe, so I'm going to say yeah. Sunil says to Jack, preaching to the choir, lol, only thing he lacks is accepting Jesus. It's true, I do not accept Jesus as Lord or Savior or God. Nothing of the sort. That's simply the way it's going to happen. That's it. That's the way it's going to go down. Jack says, since we defend our life, we can say it is worshipped like a false idol based on ego itself. This is why suffering exists, because we hold on to what isn't ours to begin with. Yes, it's that idea of desire and the right falling short of one's desire being the root of all discontent and the root of all, what did you call it, suffering. Yes, there is something to that. I mean, you can argue that suffering can be shedding karma and, making up for things from previous incarnations of the self and all that. Look Good says, when Israel denies Epstein or knowing of Epstein, so disingenuous. I mean, I'm not Israel. I'm just one guy. It's like I know that a guy. I know that there was such a guy, and I'm pretty sure he's dead. But as for the different files and things, I have no idea. Real Jack says your science doesn't do a dent on the creation of the world now, no matter what your numbers say. Well, look, science is something that's progressing and evolving. Science is prove me wrong. Science is I'm ignorant and I want to know more. And those are all commendable starting points, right? Now, some science you can claim is vain and arrogant and know it all in nature, or some scientists are know it alls in nature. Maybe. But science is an exploration, right? The scientific method as a methodology already means, right? It already says, let's see how I can be less wrong. And that's already a great thing. So I don't think that there's such a contradiction between science and the story of creation. I think it has to do with the lens through which you view the Torah or the lens through which you view science. So I think it really depends on the individual. Now, science, the hard sciences, definitely, we have what's called the immutable laws of physics, and yet we do know that there's a time and place, or not time and place, like a black hole, where the laws of physics go right out the window. So we see that even in a world that is bound by the physical laws of nature, there is a place within this place where the physical laws of space and time as we know it go right out the window. And so if we can agree that there is such a thing as an event horizon, past of which the laws bend and distort and are wiped out, and there's like something unknowable there, then you can say, okay, it could be that religion can have its say, that the account of creation in Genesis has its say, because there is a point where science breaks apart. There is a point where science fails. There is a point where the laws of nature no longer come into, they're not a factor. Do you see what I'm saying? Antique says, why do so many Jews who dress up as magicians wear glasses 90% of the time? Is it part of the outfit? Or why do they all have such bad eyesight? Is it from a ritual or genetics? Well, I don't know what you mean by dress up as magicians, but I wouldn't know why they have bad eyesight. It could be, I mean, I know with me it's genetic, so I have no idea. Jack says we are all equal to Jesus as we have the same capability as he did. Without the ego, the infinite is left. Hence why he spoke the way he did. He was detached from any form of self. Yeah, could very well be. Could very well be. Tenebris says, real Jack, keep arguing physics with a physicist and making a fool of yourself. Jack says the only thing that was left in awareness was the infinite, so only the infinite will speak. So you're saying that he was speaking from a very pure place, right? From a place that was not of the self, of not the ego. Maybe when I show up in person, he'll believe me, says Denezer. Probably not. I'm simply not. I'm simply not going to go with the fact that Jesus was God. That's simply not something that I'm going to agree with. Complete Knuckle Dragger says you're a Peter Puffer. What is a Peter Puffer? Let's see. Peter Puffer, is that an actual thing? Peter Puffer, slang, a male homosexual individual. Yes, as I've said many times, I'm gay and I'm straight and I'm bi and I'm a lesbian and I'm a non binary and a two spirit pigeon. That's what I am. So, yes, I'm definitely a Peter Puffer. Complete knuckle dragger. See, here's the thing. You want to spell out the word nigger, but because you are so, oh, what should I call it? I don't know, gutless, I suppose. You do it one letter at a time. So, all right. Have fun with that, complete knuckle dragger. Have fun. Peter Puffer, wow, you have a way with words, says FDF. Real Jack says, yeah, he's just an atheist. I'm an atheist? Or are you talking about somebody else? You're fucking base, thank you for saying it. I don't mind saying the word. It's a word. Now, of course, people should be free to say whatever they want, right? The thing is that there are consequences, social consequences, legal consequences, definitely. But to say simply the word, when people, let's say the N word, that's causing me to think it in my head. What is the difference? What is truly the difference? As long as I don't actually use that word pejoratively, as as long as I actually don't use that word to hurt other people, what about if I'm singing a rap song? Am I allowed to say the word nigger then? Or even nigga without the hard R and with the strong A? Is that allowed? It's like, why is it that if I have more or less melanin in my skin, I'm allowed to say a certain word? Where is that? These are social constructs. And sure, we need social constructs. We're living in a society. But if I'm not hurting anybody, if I'm not saying it to hurt anybody, and if I'm not saying it in order to disparage someone, why on earth should I not say the word? YouTube doesn't let you type it. Yes, okay, he could have typed N space and then IGGER, but he did it capital N and then I and then underneath, right? You see how he did it? Real Jack says the physics expert Dr. Smutcho is arguing physics because he's a full-blown atheist. Oh, okay, I hear you. I'm not a physicist, and I don't know the laws of physics. I know that I live in them, and I also know that some rules can be bent and others can be broken. Jesus wasn't God, but take all the concept of Jesus, says Jack, away, and the only thing that remains is God. Well, like you said, that can be said to each and every one of us, right? Think beyond the egoic version of Jesus and see beyond made-up stories. So Jesus says to real Jack, you can tell because a real atheist wouldn't care about Jesus one bit. They seek proof of God, not to discredit Jesus. And Tenebris says to real Jack ad hominem, when did I claim I was an atheist? Yes, indeed, I don't think he did. Jack says the blind man didn't literally be able to see, his very concept of seeing was removed. Yes, you know what? That's exactly like the blind guy in the seven beggars in Rabbi Nachman's Tale of Seven Beggars. Oh, it doesn't let you do that either, lol. Okay, sorry then. It must have let you do it somehow. I don't know. Atheist just happens to be the best mask a Levite can wear, said Sneezer. And why is that? I'm curious. Why do you think that is? Why do you think atheism is the best mask a Levite could wear? The Levitical tribe has a certain task within the Hebrew tribes. What on earth does that have to do with having be a, a best mask, like a good mask for atheism? I don't know. Powerful Jews said the word without flinching, mad respect. You see, again, I wouldn't necessarily call that someone to their face if it means that they would be hurt by it, right? But if it just comes up in conversation that is not pejorative, that is not there to hurt, and it's simply acknowledging the fact that such a word exists, all right? So if you're going to ban it, then ban it altogether. But why is it that people who are with black skin are allowed to say it, and maybe people with brown skin are allowed to say it, but people with white or pink or blue skin are not allowed to say it? That's nothing that should command respect, Antiqua. It really, really is not something that deserves any respect or should command any respect, let alone mad respect. Not in the least. I was just saying a word. Now, some people say that comes with consequences. I'm willing to accept the consequences of saying it in this context, and under these circumstances. It certainly doesn't mean that I'm saying it against someone or that I think that people with black skin are dirty. I don't have any issues with people being people no matter what skin color they have or eye color for that matter. I'm not a supremacist, I'm not a racist, I'm not a bigot, so I don't mind saying it. Because then, said Sinizer, they can attack Jesus nonstop without revealing their beliefs at all. Oh, okay. So what does that have to do with Levites? Why not the Benjamites? Why not the Judahites? Why not the Reubenites or the people of Shimon? What does it have to do with the Levitical tribes and the priestly and Levitical families? What does it have to do with it? Thus gaining blowback against the Jews, which fans their Levitical lies flames, says Sneezer. But what do you mean? You can't just say that the Levitical tribe lies. The tribe of Levi is one of the kingdom of Judah. So that means that Jews lie. I don't quite know where you're getting this Levitical thing from. You're setting Levites and priests apart where even they do not do so. Benjamites and Judites are real Jews. Okay, so what are you basing that on? So you're saying that the tribe of Levi and the parts of Levi that were incorporated into the kingdom of Judah, because they lived in the kingdom of Judah, because the temple was in the territory of Judah and Benjamin, that means that that doesn't make them real? What you're saying makes absolutely no sense, Sneezer. Can you maybe dumb it down for me? It might be going over my head again. Tenebris Sint says, I'm a Levite, as am I, and I have no idea what he's talking about. Levites aren't actually Jews. Well, again, they are because they are part of the kingdom of Judah. They simply don't belong to the tribe of Judah or of Benjamin. So they come from a different tribe and they affiliate with a different clan right within the tribe of Levi, but they are definitely Jews in the sense that they are the remnants of the kingdom of Judah. That's what Jews are. Tenebris, I don't want to argue, says Real Jack. The only Jews, said Sneezer, after 70 AD were Christian. Well, okay, so now we come to the crux of the matter. There you go. So you believe that there are no real Jews other and that Christians are the real Jews. Okay, you feel free to think that. Feel free to think that. They wrote in the Torah that they were one of three, but they never have been. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the three clans of Levi, Gershon, Kehat, and Merari? Or are you talking about something else? Because that's not written in the Torah. The Benjamin and Judah and Levi happened not in the Torah. The Torah is the 5 books of Moses. You might be thinking of later on, when the temple was destroyed. Jack says there will always be hate and suffering as long as there is ignorance. This is why real truth needs to be emanating naturally. Ah, that's cool. Yes, ignorance fans these flames of suffering. And I think that part of what I'm doing here in my own small, stupid way is trying to well, relieve or assuage some of my ignorance. Knuckle Dragger wrote something in a foreign, let's see, let's translate this quickly. In Google, I'm curious what that means. Okay, here's what it means. Oh, wait, hang on a second. What he said here in, what is it, Korean? Or I don't know what it is. I don't know what the pictographs is. Well, I don't know what the language is, but it says, "Your humble servant Liang submits. The late emperor's great undertaking was not even half completed when he passed away midway. Today the empire is divided into three, and our Yizhao is exhausted. This is truly a critical moment of survival or destruction." That's what is written there in this text. Okay, I don't know what that means. You want to bring that, down to earth a little bit? Zlatev says, "Did you read the New Testament again?" No, I have not. I have not. The three clans of Judah actually two. No, no, those are not clans. Those are two tribes of the kingdom of Judah. Judah has, what is it? Onan, Shela, Peretz, Zarach. So there are three, right? It's Right. No, 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 no. Peretz, Zerach, Chetzron, Hamul. So yes, Judah has his own clans, right? The families in Judah. Chinese. Oh, hey, Bazazao, nice to see you. Okay, so it's Chinese. Gotcha. Tenebris says to Real Jack, then don't contradict all of physics. Sinisa says the other of the 10 tribes are waiting for resolution. I agree on that. We don't exactly know. Some people do claim affiliation to this tribe or that tribe, but it's not something that is accepted by the entirety, let's say, of the Hebrew people. Nor does it have to be accepted. If they are parts of this tribe or that tribe, then they are. So Neither says, LOL, see how hard it is for a Levite, even a Nazarite, to speak truth. No, the three tribes of Judah are claimed to be Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. No, those are three tribes of the kingdom of Judah, not the tribe of Judah. Clans are within a tribe. Clans are families within a tribe, and the kingdom had tribes within it. Do you see? It's simply just a hierarchy of how you break down the people. That's it. Jack says, try it even now. You are not the doer. Things happen because of cause and effect. The ego is an automatic machine. Watch it from awareness and ask, what is that awareness that watches? Yes, I've done that with meditation. I've done that with meditation. And I know what you mean, or at least I think I know what you mean. When you are able to stop being on autopilot, you are able to see the machine for what it is. And that can happen when you take a step back, right? When you're in like deep meditation or in seclusion or to some degree in fasting, because the ego has a lot to do with sustenance of the self physically. So when you stop eating and drinking for a time, you can see things with a clearer eye because certain things which would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Certain resources, let's say, which would be diverted to food and drink, now that you're not doing that for a specific time, are diverted to a more well-rounded thinking, something like that. So I think I know what you mean. Knuckle Dragger says there are Chinese mushrooms that make you see a little people. It's real. The gnomes are real. Judah is gnome tribe. Well, you know what Sid Barrett said. The gnome named Grimble Grumble, and little gnomes stay in their homes. So Nezer says, but since Levites had authorship of the Torah, it was simple for them to claim to be Jews. Well, look, Moses wrote down a Torah for each one of the tribes and gave it to the elders of the different tribes. It wasn't one Torah, right? It was a Torah that was written on different scrolls and given to the elders of the tribes. Matty says, I love gnomes so much. Real Jack says, no, I was thinking about this and I have nothing to prove to you, and I realized I'm good with that. Do your research. I base mine on Torah. There is scientific evidence. Halos within rock. Okay. So what are these Chinese mushrooms, Knuckle Dragger? I'm curious. As for halos within rock, do you mean actual sort of spiritual life force that surrounds or permeates physical existence, even at the level of mineral? I'm inclined to agree. What is this, a midday stream? Exquisite, says Eiler. Yes, but I'm gonna go soon. Nice to see you again, Eiler. Very nice to see you. Hold up, says Complete Knuckle Dragger. What is it? Are your knuckles hurt? Keep on dragging. Sneezer is a flat earth moron anti-Semite, says Sint, who thinks they know Judaism better than Jews. Well, look, some people think they know Judaism better than Jews because people claim we are fake Jews and people claim we are imposters and people claim that we have no affinity to the real God and we are the synagogue of Satan and we worship Satan and we worship the devil, and I mean, not even in the sense of like Leviathan religious Satanism and philosophy, but like actual baby eating, kitten sacrificing people. Arabs are Semitic too. Tenemoron, yes, right? People who come from Shem. I think I'm gonna go soon. Now listen, Sneezer, you say that it's hard for a Levite, even a Nazarite, to speak truth. So you seem to think in like an absolute, right? But I don't think that way, and maybe that is to my detriment. I'm inclined to say, okay, let's go with that. Let's say that it's to my detriment. All I have is the way that I view reality, and I'm willing to change the way that I view reality, and I've done so over the years repeatedly. Consistently, I've changed the way that I view the world. I have changed the way that I view the people living in the world. I have changed the way that I think divine revelation comes into the world. Now, you seem to think that you have the truth. Fair enough. Go with that. I don't claim to have any truth. I don't claim to have any great wisdom. I don't claim to have any great knowledge that somebody else does not. You know this. You've been in this live stream for months. You know this is actually true. That I don't claim, right? I don't make these grand claims that I know the truth, but you don't. I am wise and you are not. Right? I'm the holder of this great understanding and you are not. You yourself say that it is only misunderstanding that causes all of the behavior of the misunderstanders. And you say that I misunderstand and that I'm blind and that I'm ignorant and that I refuse to see the truth, even though it's like plain and clear and simple to you. It's not that plain and clear and simple to me. And you can make the case, yes, but I'm forcing it and I'm being stiff necked. And I'll say, yes, I am. I am choosing to be stiff necked about these things. That is true. That is true. Matthew says, sorry for the question. I like you very much. It's all good. Do you have any thoughts about the recent Epstein files? So I don't know about the recent ones, and I don't know about the earlier ones. I have no idea. Why so many of the elite Jews, of the elite Jewish? Because the elites of any group, money and power can corrupt people, and that's why the elites that have both will be corrupted. Not necessarily, but definitely it goes like downstream from that. Maybe there isn't a reason in particular, they just happen to be Jewish, sacrificing to Baal and devil. Okay, so I don't know the previous Epstein files, let alone the recent Epstein files. I have no idea what you're saying and what you're talking about because I haven't done the research. I also think that well, from what I've understood, it's still very much censored and redacted. So people are making a lot of assumptions, but then some people are actually physically named and pointed at and photographed, and so I don't know. And you don't have to be sorry for the questions, and I appreciate the kind sentiment. I do. Jack says that just proves how scared people are of letting go of their self, hence why the inner practice is shunned. Is it indeed shunned? Who said that the inner practice is shunned? There have been many practices and many cultures and faiths, let's say, that value the inner work. And that say exactly what you are saying, that there is a world outside of us that is causing us harm and that could be to our detriment, and it's all shadows dancing on the wall, right? What was that? The allegory of the cave? So a lot of wise people and a lot of religious people and a lot of religious the philosophies have mentioned this very thing and have given a lot of value and put a lot of emphasis on doing the inner work. What are you basing that on when you're saying that the inner practice is shunned? I have no idea what you're talking about. Bolete mushroom, says Complete Knuckle Dragger. They're all over the place. The specific one we know that causes people to see lil people are Lanmoa asiatica. I'll Google that for later. I'm very curious about that. So yes, I'm a fan of mushrooms, that's for sure. But I think that it needs its proper set and setting and the proper time and place. Matty says, I like your way of viewing things and trying to improve your knowledge. Nobody knows the truth in our body. We find out truth in the afterlife. I think we can try to search for it and improve it. Yes, all I have is the search. All I have is seeking, right? That's all I have, really, because I will always fall short of the absolute. I will always fall from grace. So I'm trying to do what I can with the time that I'm given. Now, some things, as I've said, yes, I'm staunchly ignorant, blind, and stiff necked about because so far this is the hill that I'm going to die on. This is the flag, right, that I stick in the ground, the pillar that I hold on to. Civilization says, how can you deny not knowing Epstein as an Israeli? Haha, it's so ridiculous, just shows how easy it is for these sneaks to lie. What do you mean? I know that there was a person called Jeffrey Epstein. I know that many different files have come to light recently, and some evidently very recently, more than previously, but I don't listen to news, and I don't read the papers, and I don't go deep into any kind of. I'm not an intellectual, right? And I don't deal with modern day politics. And I haven't voted in about 20 years because I don't trust politics and I don't trust politicians. So, and I don't fully trust the government either, and or the army for that matter, like I've said. So I'm not a sneak. I'm literally telling you the truth. I know that there is this thing called the Epstein files. I know many people are named and photographs were taken and certain things are censored and certain things are redacted, but certain things are definitely out in the open now. That's all I know. Because I choose to not engage in this conversation. Really. What good will it come? Tell me truly, civilization, not being sneaky, genuinely asking, what good will come to me as a simple dumbass living here in the Middle East, right? Just me, a layman, a simple Joe. What good will come to me from knowing all of the horrible, horrible things that allegedly happened on this island and these people and the worshiping the devil or Baal, as someone said here? What good will possibly come to me from knowing these things? What can I do something about it? Really, answer me. What is it that I can do? Pooty says same mushrooms are found in South America with same tiny people hallucinations supposedly, but the people on DMT report similar entities. It's probably all demonic in my honest opinion. Oh, really? So you think that the machine elves, Pooty, are actually demonic? Now I'm curious. If you go, let's say, with a kosher and righteous mindset, and you avoid, let's say, the South American or Central American shamanic thing, which you can claim is more demonic, if you will. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. Then, if you just go in there straight, do you think it's still demonic then? Because it's you who are taking the substance. It's you who are partaking of this mushroom, right, or of the ayahuasca or whatever it is, right? So I'm curious. What do you think of that? Real Jack says, I think geology. It's been a while since I watched it. Okay. Complete Knuckle Dragger says Epstein files go hard as F. Epstein being banned from Xbox and playing Fortnite is a W. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean. RMK is here. Hey, RMK, good to see you. Open-minded, decent guy. Some might disagree. Don't be disrespectful to him, please. No, by all means, be disrespectful. Get it out of your system. By all means, be disrespectful. He's well respected in his field, says Real Jack. Well, I guess you're talking to, those who are talking to you. Jack says, I meant how the ego makes up new stories about inner work that keeps the self important. Like how yoga in the West is now only good for health. Twisted by ego, we must be brave to dive deep. On that, I'm willing to agree. We definitely need. Hey, thanks, Matty. I appreciate it. Let's celebrate their fifth super on a live stream. 5 of them. Good for you. That's very, very cool. Hiya. So all of the money goes to charity. I haven't received my first payment yet, so a charity has not been selected. But by all means, give if you want with super chat or super thanks or super. Watch an ad if it comes along. You will be giving money to charity, and I will have a poll at the end. Not at the end. Whenever the first payment makes its way through, have a poll, and I will be donating it to the charity that we kind of agree on, right? But I will definitely be consulting with the community on that. And I thank you. That's really, really sweet of you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's continue. Um, Hold on. Forbid you can repent. Da, 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 da. There. Baal. Oh, okay. Yes, brave to dive deep. Puti says Baal child sacrifices. Baphomet trans G. Tech bro Luciferians think he is God's brother and work to usurp the throne of Yahweh. It's all deceptions from the Dark One, says Puti. Well, I don't know if people still actually worship Baal, and I know Baphomet is something that is only a few hundred years old, right? Or right? Tech bro Luciferians may be, at least some of them, because they seek to be the light bearers, right? And they seek to bring people together through enlightenment and technology and industry, or modern day IT industry. Maybe. I don't think they're all Luciferians, not necessarily. As for usurping the throne, what are you basing that on? On usurping the throne? How do you see that? You can repent and pray is what you can do. All right, definitely. I seek to repent, and I'm always praying. Matty says the only thing people can do is really up to the citizens and politicians and powerful in the USA and Western nations. We must destroy this corruption and show people are still in control. So as far as you're concerned, we are not past the point of no return, at least in the US? I'm curious. All the Jews involved that your people are child preds, says Civilization. Well, I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't with this Epstein files business. I have no idea. I haven't read them. I haven't gone through them. It's come to my understanding that there are thousands and thousands of pages. So I have no idea. Sneezer says to Matty, you only ever have one option: to do and speak honestly, or to delay God's will of peace through understanding, said Sneezer. Complete Knuckle Dragger says, I recommend an album, Forbidden Fruit by Monodrone. I enjoy it. Someone above commented Forbidden Fruit and remembered. Jesus loves and protects, says Matty Ice. Okay, wait, hold on. Forbidden Fruit by Monodrone. Let me put that in. There. I'll check that out later. What ways of charity is required in Judaism, says RMK? Well, there's the tithe, which is 10% of what you make that you're required to give. It's initially supposed to be to give to the tribe of Levi, to the families of Levi, and the Levitical families give a tenth of a tenth to the priests. Also, there's charity of once every 7 years, the land rests. We have a Sabbath of the land, and the fruit and the veggies and the grains belong to everybody, including the beasts and the animals in the field. And generally, charity is considered something that is good to do, and you halachically, by rabbinic law, are allowed to give up to 20%. But after 20%, right, up to a fifth, because you don't want to give so much charity to such a degree that you end up needing it yourself. So there is a kind of ceiling on what halachically you should be giving, and a kind of minimal or minimum with the tithe, right, the 10%. And that's basically it. And as for charity that's not, let's say, money, being a charitable individual, right, is to love thy neighbor and love thy God, right? That in itself is a great charity, right? And to the golden rule, basically, right? The golden rule. Matty says, I believe we are past many things, but this shows that there are those within the Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, who tried to hide this, and others who now want this shed to light, meaning there is a way forward. It's a good thing that there's a way forward. And yes, there are always people behind the scenes who are hiding certain things. That's why I have an issue with conspiracy theorists. because some of it is actually correct. But how on earth am I going to know which are correct and which are not? These things are only, unless there's like a major whistleblower that can actually prove these things. It's only over the course of time, right, and throughout history that we understand retroactively that certain conspiracy theories were actually 100% true. But there are so many different conspiracies and theorists. It's difficult for me to tell what's what and which is which and how to discern. I really don't know. Jack says, why blame the elites? Anyone that takes the elites over end up becoming just like them. Money reveals our egoic nature. It's ignorance that is the problem. There will always be evil with ignorance. And yeah, I mean, it's like, can you overthrow the elite and not become the elite yourself? Right? Can you overthrow the government and not rule, right? And give it back to the people, like in the movie Gladiator, right? Matty says there is no return for those harmed and murdered or assaulted. They can only heal if they survived these people. A lot of people are very angry now and will search for justice. Okay, yes, they will search for justice. And then again, the question is, do you let things run their course legally? Do you use like legal recourse? Or do you take the vigilante path and do you take things into your own hands? And maybe sometimes that will be the case, right? And that will be the thing to do. Yes, once every 7 years, RMK, the land rests. And then after 7 cycles of 7, there's the year 49, which is a Sabbath of the land. And the 50th year is also a Sabbath of the land called the Jubilee. So that's not practiced nowadays, but the once every 7 years is kind of practiced in the land of Israel. Another thing that happens at the Jubilee is that all of the lands go back to their original owners or original inheritors, let's say, not owners, but inheritors, and slaves, Hebrew slaves and handmaids that decided to stay with their master after they were supposed to be freed, and they, of their own accord, decided to stay, they are released even then. In other words, the Jubilee, the 50th year, the 7 times 7 plus 1, in the 50th year, we have this idea of complete freedom, redemption. The word redemption, Geula, is mentioned in that context of redeeming the land. Redeeming means going back to your root as a free human being, which is why the land goes back to its original inheritors, at least in most cases. There are some cases where that's not the case, but ordinarily all of the land goes back to their original inheritors, right? Tribally. And the land rests a 50th year, not just the 49th year, but the 50th year, and right, 2 in a row, and slaves go back to being free, and they are not allowed to remain slaves. Because even if they chose to stay with their human masters, they may not remain slaves to a human master. They need to learn what it means to be your own master and to submit to the will of the higher master, right, the will of God, and not take on a human master. So this idea of the rest of the land, right, the Sabbath of the land, is also crucial because it is because that the Sabbath of the land was not observed that the land vomited the people out. There are many things that the land can suffer, different transgressions and misdeeds, yes. But once it comes to not observing the Sabbath of the land, just like murder, that's something that the land will not abide. And it says in the Torah that the days that we spend in exile, the years that we spend in exile outside the land, and all of the exiles that we will undergo whenever they do come to pass, part of it, most of it, will be just giving the land its proper years of Sabbath that it did not get while the people were still here. So, yes, the land rests is a very, very major thing. It really, really is. All right, it's been just about 2 hours. I think I'm going to say goodbye. This has been such a pleasure. Because I was on my webcam and not my phone, I had a lot less people. However, I did get to do something I haven't done in almost 2 months, which is pretty much go one by one in the chat until it once again became a little too fast for me to actually follow, and I wanted to keep it properly dynamic and answer things as they come in. But I wasn't on my phone and I was on the webcam, which means two things. First, most of my audience, and I already knew this, right? Because I've been getting like dozens of thousands every live stream, thank God. The YouTube algorithm has been very gracious, has been very kind to me these past like 6, 7 weeks. 6, 7. Oh, my kids, I'm gonna kill them. Anyway, but I see that it's only the short stream in the analytics. 90 something percent of people arrive at it through their phone, right? On their shorts stream, on their shorts feed, rather, which means that this does not appear on their shorts, which means that I get a lot less people. But it was nice, I think, to get a lot less people. It meant that I had the ability to go again one by one, which was really, really cool. Very, very cool. I think I'll stay a couple more minutes because I'm enjoying this. And now, just right now, it's 2 hours. Before I continue for one or two more questions, I will say thank you for your time and your kind and gentle attention, the likes and the subs and the views, and those who are against me and those who are for me. The cheers and the boos alike, I take them and I embrace them, and they're lovely. I don't take it for granted that you take the time out of your day, out of your night, out of your life. I think it's a wondrous thing, a wonderful thing that we get to do this, whether it's 400 people in the chat or 12 people, whether it's 150 likes or 12 likes. It's lovely. It's wonderful. Each and every one of you here, I deeply appreciate it. Okay, Eiler says, what I learned about charity in Judaism is that it's higher to charity when the receiver doesn't know who charity giving person and vice versa is. Yes, what's called matan baseter, giving in hiding, meaning that, the act of giving is a hidden. Matan, to give, baseter, in hiding. So giving in hiding when it's anonymous and they don't know who it is, that is for sure. Yes, that's the higher one. That's true. So no, it's not Chabad. It's a basic teaching, I think, in Judaism that you have a hierarchy of charity, and the highest there is, I think, is Matan Baseter. Yes, indeed. Complete Knuckle Dragger says that's a good question. I think there's only a percent of a percent that could rule justly. Madam, what you were talking about Messiah, I assume? All right. Whew. Wow, this has been such an amazing live stream. A little different than it has been for the last like 6 or 7 weeks. And I'm very, very happy about that. I think it was a chance for me to remember that whether it's, hundreds of people online watching or whether it's 14 people, it's still here. It's still happening. There is still so much to discuss. And there's still so much, even if there was one person here, right? And 0 likes or negative likes, right? It doesn't really matter. What matters is that the conversation is there, the dialogue is there, the back and forth is there, the magic exists. And I love it. And I really do think it's magical. And I don't take it for granted the ability to go live from Jerusalem right here, right now, right? It's literally the fulfillment of prophecy to do such a thing. May I ask, because you are so proficient at seeking knowledge and truth, I'm not proficient, I just like what I do. Why have you said you have not read the New Testament and paid attention to Jesus' existence, if not as the Messiah? Well, I have read the New Testament once, and I probably will do it again at some point, but I don't pay attention to Jesus' existence now because he is dead, which means I can still consider the things he say to be very wise and righteous, and I can learn to walk in his footsteps, but I don't consider him to be a God incarnate, a God in flesh, or a living king that's supposed to make a comeback. That kind of goes against the Torah. Kind of. So, yeah. Goodbye from Jerusalem. God willing, I will see you in the next live stream. I hope tomorrow. Until then, be blessed, be a blessing, be the light in other people's lives. Let's have a good one. Oh, see, I was gonna press this because I'm so used to ending with a tap. Thank you all, and thank you, Mati, for donating. And we'll get to see on what the charity will be, and we will see. All right, God bless.